Amit, what's the biggest hurdle for a developer post RERA?
So I think this question have came bit wrong. That hurdle. I would going to say that there are no hurdles, but RERA is something which is
What steps are there which a developer needs to keep in mind when they're starting up any project? Right from the start, I would like to understand until the end.
if the planning is done properly, it's like we have done halfway through. Because then what is left is just implementation of that.
What's the global perspective on RERA? I would love to also understand that.
Wherever the RERA got implemented, those countries were into developing states and those have now grown up to develop.
वेलकम टू बिल्ड लेगेसी शो जहां होती है रियल बात रियल बंदों के साथ पावर्ड बाय डी आर बिल्ड बैक इन एक्शन टुडे वी आर हियर विद सी अमित केडिया who is India's leading RERA expert and he has helped thousands of real estate developers to educate, make them aware and help them on the subject of RERA in every state of this country. Since the RERA has been in implementation, since the RERA has been in action, he has been speaking on several forums in India and across the globe on educating about RERA to every real estate developer. And today we are here to take his entire wisdom of over a decade on the subject of RERA. So over to you, Amit. Welcome again.
Thank you very much for calling me over here.
Thank you, Amit. So today I would just like to start with asking you what actually made you fall in love with RERA.
So it is not like a fall in love in RERA. It was an initial thought from childhood when we listen roti, kapda, and makan. And from the childhood, it was seen how the SEBI came in 1992 and the way the capital market of our country matured. It was a time for real estate to get itself into maturity with coming up of the RERA regulation. So this was the time when I thought this could not be a less grateful job for the country, for the developers, and for the allottees in totality, which by serving the act of RERA can help the development of the country. And here where like the RERA came in place in my general practice.
Awesome. So, Amit, you must have gone through a lot of rigorous studies and thorough research since this subject is not taught in chartered accountancy as far as I know. So, how was your journey so far getting so much of grip on this subject?
So you have touched a point which was like very near to my heart. It was like way back 2015 when like the whispers of RERA was there, like it is now being into grounds very soon. And I remember the December of 2015, early January 2016, when I started understanding a very critical section, section 4 to LD, that was in regards of the maintenance of separate account. And as very well told by you, there was no school, and it took me almost 6 months discussing with friends, colleagues, members in ministry to understand how this section 4 to LD, maintenance of separate account, is important and how it needs to be implemented. So, yes, it was a journey where self learning was much more there and compared to like somebody who could have taught me at that time.
So, in simple language, in layman's language, if I ask you, for any new developer, if they want to understand RERA, what's RERA?
So I would say, like, had it been this question had came 10 years before, it would be like very new. The answer would have been very new. But now the whole ecosystem and understanding of this question is there with the developers. But to brush up an understanding, because there are some myths also today also.
And there are many new fellow developers also coming up in the
Yes.
industry.
So any real estate development where the intent is to advertise, and through the advertisement the intent is to sell and take advance, there where one of the developer needs to check that is RERA is applicable on them. And the second part where they need to understand would be they need to see that any development which they are doing and coming up is more than 500 square meter in terms of land, or more than 8 units in terms of units. The important aspect here where when I have said units is being taken, like if I am doing a high rise building, then only RERA is applicable. And there where after 10 years also there is a myth on the plotted development also. If somebody is developing plots, just developing, I'm again repeating, just developing plots
Means
and
cutting the plots and
and selling it, and those plots are more than 8, might be the total area of plots combined together is less than 500 square meter also, then also RERA would be applicable. There is a myth of industrial development. Now many states have came with a clarification, and more or less everybody is on the same page, where now the industrial development are also required for RERA registrations. So net net, the importance is how any of the real estate development, maybe commercial, a residential, plotted, or industrial, should fall in this regulated environment.
got it. So it must have changed the overall scene of the entire real estate sector, I'm sure, as you are saying it. So if I ask you, what has been the overall impact post RERA on a real estate developer's business?
So, as told you in the starting, I have seen 1992, where it was said that post coming of SEBI, the capital market would crash, there would be no liquidity, there would be no depth which would be left in the capital market, and we can see how big is the Indian capital market is today. And similarly, there was a buzz,
Anticipation.
anticipation in 2016-17 that the real estate sector would be dying, post RERA would be coming, and it have done absolutely inversely opposite. Now this sector have developed multifolds. Post COVID, you have seen neither any of the tier city, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 city, almost the prices have doubled. Almost the development is there. The big players are now coming to tier 2, tier 3 cities also. And this is what is happening because of RERA coming into place. So the market is expanding, and it would be expanding more in time to come, as we have seen the capital market journey in last 35 years. So from 2017 to 35 years from there, you can imagine the massive real estate which India would be having because of implementation of RERA into place.
Very nice. So that means overall there has been a great positive sentiment whether it is for the overall market, whether it is for the developer, and definitely it would be helping the end consumer also. And I'm going to touch that also in the later section of my overall podcast. But yes, when I talk about a project life cycle, Amit, what steps are there which a developer needs to keep in mind when they're starting up any project right from the start? I would like to understand until the end.
So again, it becomes a very important aspect of any of the project. Uh, Whenever we see there is a planning which is required. So if like it's said like if the planning is done properly, it's like we have done halfway through, because then what is left is just implementation of that. What I have seen in these last 10 years, मेरे को तो प्रोजेक्ट बनाना है, मेरे को बस अप्रूवल आए, अप्रूवल आएगी, मैं फिर रेरा लूँगा और रेरा लेके मेरे को इतना तो क्रेडिट आएगा पैसे का, इतना तो मेरा सेल होएगा और ये मेरे को अपने खर्चा लगेगा और ये मेरे को बचत होएगी. These are the only three lines which is there in the mind of any developer, which I am very sorry, but this is not the correct approach. Some of them have now started understanding, creating a proper cash flow, creating a proper workflow. Post creating that cash flow workflow, they come and do the implementation of the project. So एक मेरे को जो मेरी कॉस्ट, अगर मैं कोई काम करता हूँ, simple, if I do any work at my home only, I do a planning, I do a mathematics, I do a budgeting. In the similar manner, I first formally needs to do a budgeting. I need to take out a BOQ of my project. I need to take out the timelines of my project. Post I am ready with these timelines, these BOQs of my project, I need to kickstart my approval process, and post I get my approvals, I need to get it implemented. If I do whole of my project in this set manner, believe me, there would be no person who would be having any grievances, because the timeline which I have given is calculated. The cost which I have given, I have already calculated in my home and then given it to my end customer. So there would be no deviation. And what any of the allottee if feels like that I am being fooled is because of the these two majors reason, that the cost have escalated, then the burden is coming on me, or the timeline which have been given to me is not been met. So this is the only simplest way to do a proper budgeting, to do a proper planning, and then according to the planning, it gets implemented.
So that means the overall scenario, in the overall scenario, the planning has become very pivotal post RERA. Is that correct?
Yes, definitely. Because in that planning, my each and every product, each and every thing which I'm giving in my real estate asset to the allottee is also being covered. Because if I have taken a thought that I would be giving an X brand of sanitary fittings or X brand of air condition, that planning have already taken into place. That planning only I have showcased to the allottees, and that is what I have delivered. So there is no mismatch, there is no gap which has been left. And if somebody would going to put fingers on a developer, then those gaps does not exist. So where would be the point of raising fingers would going to be?
I mean, doesn't all these planning and taking each and every detailing into consideration uh, causes delays in the project?
Not at all. Not at all on the part of the developer. I would going to say the developer who is going with a full proof plan and then getting it implemented, he would not going to be caught in this issue. But definitely, there is a sentimental issue with the statutory bodies where post planning also the implementation or the approvals which are required from the statutory bodies get delay. Undoubtedly, this is a negative aspect which the statutory body should consider into. Maybe the local bodies, maybe the boards which gives these approvals. My say here would be the manner in which the RERA is being implemented and had made the developer account for. In the similar manner, these statutory bodies should also come in the ambit. These statutory bodies should also be put under the radars that these are the timelines, and in these timelines, if you don't work, if you don't give the approvals, then you are also equally liable. As the liability falls on the developer, the liability would going to fall on you also. So that is a very important aspect which is now a high time when the government should look forward.
Very nice, very wonderfully. It's a great insight, I would say. And I mean, if I ask you, let's say there are multiple states, I'm sure it's a unified act, if I'm not wrong, right?
It's a central act.
It's a central
It's a
act.
central act. Yes.
Now, when you're saying that the approvals which are coming from the government bodies, there's certain delay into that. Is it standardized like delay in every city, or it, how does it works?
So it's a sad part of the real estate sector that yes, these delays are
I'm
in
feeling
all
as
the
if
states.
I'm feeling as if I have tried some, some.
Yes, you are correct. You are correct. You are getting a correct feel from like my body language, because when real estate sector is the second biggest contributor of the GDP of our country, there are almost 300 industries which are dependent on it.
Directly, indirectly.
There is a hard earned money of the allottees which have been put into the developments, and over and above, the developers are giving their best to come up with a beautiful product, with a beautiful real estate, a piece of real estate which a allottee would cherish for their lifelong, because houses are made once in the lifetime. When these developers are not able to get these approvals on time, and as you very well said, it is not specifically towards a state, it is a painful thing across the states, then there is a hurdle in development of all these stakeholders, starting from developers, allottees, and the 300 allied sectors which are connected with the real estate sector. So, this is definitely a pain point. Having said that, RERA being a unified, that is a act which is a central act. In that terminology, it's a unified one. The government have come up with a website with the unified, uh, keeping it into a unified regulation. But land law being a state subject, again the rules are made as per the state RERA authority. Again, this becomes a very painful event. Having said that, different RERA authorities are coming up with different rules. If I am a developer who is working across the countries or maybe more than one state, then I have to follow and understand that rule of that particular state, and implementation of that putting it into on papers and putting it then on grounds becomes very difficult. To an extent, if I see the bank account opening, the maintenance of bank account, they are different clauses. There are different uh, rules which have been came with different authorities. Had it said, if RBI comes with a rules, with a policy, with a statement, like this is how the RERA accounts needs to be maintained, this is how the RERA accounts needs to be uh, followed with the compliances, it becomes easy for each and every stakeholder to understand it. There is a pending agreement to sell which needs to be implemented at the national level. The Supreme Court is behind that, but it is not getting implemented. This because of this unimplementation of this agreement to sell, different authorities have are been following, or you can say are changing at their sweet will, which is again a painful event for a national level developer to get things implemented, or to understand also for allottees also, if they see that the agreement it in a particular state says something and at another state says something, it becomes difficult for all stakeholders in that
And
case.
I'm assuming that if any developer, let's say, is working in Gurgaon, if they want to, let's say, venture into Noida, or if they want to venture into, let's say, Uttarakhand or maybe Calcutta, I mean, it will become very difficult for the developer also to. I mean, this would become a belief which will prevent them to, I think, expanding themselves into different cities or states. I feel.
Definitely, in just for 5 words, you have gone to 5 states. So again, in these 5 states, you are like dealing with five different authorities.
Having five different laws, bylaws, clauses, rules.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, Amit, what's the biggest hurdle for a developer post RERA?
So I think uh, this question have came bit wrong. That hurdle, I would going to say that there are no hurdles, but RERA is something which is removing all the hurdles. Having said that, pre-RERA, there were complications. There were like no set regulations which were there in place. But now post-RERA, everything is being documented. RERA is making more visibility. It's creating more visibility. It's more transparency towards the developer. There's a set rule book, you can say. The developer now just needs to follow that rule book. In the similar manner, he just needs to do a planning and just get implemented. So the roads post RERA are more smoother, and if the roads are smoother, you can imagine how the speed somebody can take.
And the journey also will be more joyful, I feel.
Definitely yes. Definitely yes.
I mean, since you've been participating on so many Indian and international forums, what's the global perspective on RERA? I would love to also understand that from you.
So I just tell you a small history where wherever the RERA got implemented, those countries were into developing states, and those have now grown up to developed. You take Singapore, Dubai, Germany, these are the countries where RERA came, and now you can see the growth. You can see the quality of the real estate development. You can see, is there any fear left with these allottees or with the developers in going and developing real estate in these places? So the regulations are so smooth, the acts are so smooth, The implementation is so smooth. So the market is growing. And there where the global perspectives comes from. Now globally, with coming of RERA into place, the same thing we are also seeing the way the financial institutions are coming, the way the investors are coming and looking forward for a safe jurisdiction. So RERA is playing a very important role towards that.
But when I see, yeah, still after RERA, there are many stalled projects. What's the root cause for the same?
So मैं इसको इस तरह से बोलूँगा कि आदतें जाती सी जाती हैं। आदतें एकदम से नहीं जाती। काफ़ी जने सीख गए हैं, काफ़ी जने समझ गए हैं, बट अभी भी कुछ आदतें पुरानी यादों की जैसे रह गई हैं।
तो
तो
मतलब
मैंने
जानना और मानना, आई थिंक मुझे वो बहुत एक मेटाफोरिकली याद आ रहा था कि जानना एक चीज है और उसको मानना दूसरी चीज है।
राइट। सो रेरा के आने के बाद में ये चीज़ समझ में आ गई है कि जिस तरह से मैं पहले व्यापार करता था उस तरह से अब मैं व्यापार नहीं करता है मेरे को। लेकिन जो अभी भी उसी तरह से व्यापार करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, सबसे बड़ा रीज़न है साइफनिंग ऑफ द फंड्स। सबसे बड़ा रीज़न है नॉट अ बिग बेटर गुड प्लानिंग। If these things have still not been taken care of, the project would be going into pain and would be going through the stalled life cycle. But hopefully this pain would be reduced by government of India. We are just around the corner of budget, and the Swami Fund 2 is expected to be announced in this budget. So it would be a second chance post 2019. सो रेरा के पहले जो मैंने गलतियां की थी वो गलतियां मेरी 2019 के स्वामी फंड से क्लीन हुई, साफ हुई। 2019 के फंड के बाद में जो मैंने गलतियां 2026 तक करी, अब उम्मीद है कि स्वामी फंड 2 उन गलतियों को ख़त्म कर देगा। उन स्टॉल्ड प्रोजेक्ट्स को पैसा कहीं ना कहीं मिल जाएगा और वो स्टॉल्ड से बाहर आके डिलीवरेबल में आ जाएंगे। बट नाउ इट्स अ हाई टाइम दैट वी अंडरस्टैंड द रेरा विच इज़ अ वेरी ब्यूटिफुल रेगुलेशन दैट इज़ देयर in place post these time. Now we would not going to get more time for coming up with stalled project, or I can say if I am doing my business now in year 2026, then I should see that my planning is proper, my implementation is proper, so that moving forward from here my project does not get stalled.
Amit, if any developer's project is stalled, how can you be of help to them at this point since new Swami Fund is around the corner to be?
So might be like we can advise them how they can apply to the Swami Fund, how what mistakes have been done in this particular project. So post getting this Swami Fund, they come up with this stalled project, and they can take care that if one of their project got stalled out of the many, at least those other project does not come in the same category. So we can understand and then advise them how they can take a stand towards these projects.
Now, since RERA, Amit, is a set of rules, that's what you said, it's a rule book, then definitely to get every rule implemented, you need a team or you need external advisors. What's the best way to deal with it very powerfully for any developer across the country.
So again, the best way is to start the initial planning properly. We should create a proper foolproof planning methodology where we should have a combination of both internal team which sees on the daily basis the assessment that whatever planning in whichever manner the planning have been done is implemented on grounds, and the planning does not remain in books only or exactly just the plan. And while the implementation of planning is done, external advice, as there is a rule which is said that there should be two people, one should be the maker and one should be the checker. So in a similar manner, whatever implementation have been done, there should be an external advice that that check have been done properly. Over and above, whatever the regulatory submissions are to be made, those regulatory submissions are made on well on time. There is a compliance, a quarterly compliance, so called as quarterly progress report, which is in short is called QPR, where the certification of architect, engineer, chartered accountant, the advertisements which have been done, the bookings which have been done during this quarter, whatever funds have been the way the manner the funds have been utilization, progress of the project, these all needs to be put in place to the authorities. I would be frightened to speak the number, but to the best of my understanding, to an extent of around 50% of the developers are not taking it seriously. And this is again becoming a unwanted non-compliance for these developers in time to come. The RERA authorities are taking very stringent measures towards. So, as told, the planning should be implemented properly, and with this planning implemented, it needs to be reported. So, the confidence of my allottees, the confidence of my investors, the confidence of my other stakeholders, maybe the contractor, supplier, that gives a boost to my project. Maybe you are not getting a direct benefit, a monetary benefit by these implementation, but there is an emotional benefit. There is a benefit which is we term as goodwill, which the market gives a value towards it. That is being created by these type of implementations.
Nice. So, I mean, whenever I see anything not happening the way it is to be done, and I go to a root cause of it, it's always a viewpoint. एक आपका दृष्टिकोण क्या है किसी चीज को देखने का? What would you advise developer that those who are up to an extent of 50% not following these regulations, what is the shift required in the viewpoint of a developer that these RERA regulations are strictly being followed by them?
So it is very simple. We just need to see that there is no hiding which is to be played. जो मेरे को रेरा का रजिस्ट्रेशन करते समय I have given some declarations, I have given some affidavits that these are what are the things I would be following. They should simply, religiously follow it.
It's honor your word. That's
Exactly.
That's you got to honor your word. Period. That's the
it.
viewpoint which
That's the most simplest way. मैं अगर ये सोचूं कि मैं इससे कोई साइड पाथ ले लूंगा और मैं रोल ओवर करके टाइम निकाल लेता हूं और आई वुड बी गेटिंग एन एग्जिट, तो वो संभव नहीं होगा ना.
Yeah, because I've heard there are a lot of penalties also, if I'm not wrong, right?
Exactly. Penalties up to 5%, 10% of the project cost.
Including land or without?
So project cost is just not development. Project cost is land plus development. So if the project is of say worth 100 crores and the land is per se is for 60 crores and the development is of 40 crores, the total project cost would be 100 land plus development. And you can understand what are the margins. 10-15% are the margins in these projects, and if up to 5% or 10% penalty is imposed, then you can imagine a wrong advertisement to a developer 10 years before had attracted a 50 lakh rupee penalty. Just he needed to put one tower in his advertisement, and he have put two towers. One was RERA approved, the another one was not RERA approved. And because of this mistake which he have done, he had to pay a penalty of 50 lakh rupees to the authority. You can just imagine a advertisement, a wrong advertisement, how big the cost will attract.
This is pretty interesting, Amit. But before I get into advertising and its norms and what are the things to be kept in mind, I would like to ask one more question before going a little back. That when you appoint a team or when you hire an external advisor, that's absolutely well understood. But when you define any rule book, any SOP, any KRAs for the team, obviously there would be certain mistakes, certain blunders, certain ignorances which would be happening at several developers and by the team. What have you experienced in general in your so much of experience?
So I would going to start and tell you one thing. This RERA Act is nothing. And if I sum the RERA Act, which consists of 92 section, which is not the real sections would not going to come more than 20 if I actually see. But then also if I submit the whole act into one line, then I would love to submit that जो वादा किया है वो निभाना पड़ेगा. So whatever you have committed, you need to deliver. And there where the mistakes starts happening. The mistakes start. वादा मैंने क्या किया, सबसे बड़ा वादा खिलाफी जो होती है वो होती है टाइम की. मैंने जो टाइम बोला कि मैं इस टाइम के अंदर आपको दे दूंगा आपका प्रोडक्ट, आपका रियल एस्टेट, वो टाइम मैं कहीं ना कहीं मिस कर जाता हूँ. वो मेरी टीम को बहुत तरीके से देखना होगा, असेसमेंट करना होगा कि जब मैं टाइमलाइन अपनी बना रहा हूँ, प्रोजेक्ट की डिलीवरेबल्स पे बना रहा हूँ, तो वो टाइमलाइन मैं ऐसी बनाऊँ, जल्दबाजी में नहीं बनाऊँ कि भाई अब तो मेरे को रेरा आ गया, प्रोजेक्ट लॉन्च करना है, कोई भी समय लिख दो और अग्रीमेंट कर लो कोई भी वैल्यू पे, बाद में मैं बता दूंगा, समझा दूंगा, देख लेंगे. ये सब नहीं चलेगा. सबसे बड़ा उस अलॉटी का एक पेन रहता है कि वो एक उम्मीद बना के बैठ जाता है. वो अपनी जिंदगी भर की कमाई दे देता है इस उम्मीद से कि उस दिन के बाद मैं अपने आशियाने में रहूंगा. तो वो जो उस दिन है ना, वो उस दिन को बहुत एक्यूरेट, नियर टू एक्यूरेट देना बहुत जरूरी है. बल्कि उस दिन जो एक्यूरेसी आपने कैलकुलेट की है उसके भी और 2 महीने 3 महीने बाद में दे दो. शुरू में जब लेते समय अगर उसको बोल दोगे ना कि मेरे को तो इस समय बाद मिलेगा, उसके मन में ठंडक रहेगी, वो सेटिस्फाइड रहेगा. लेकिन बाद में जाके अगर उसको बोलोगे कि लेट दूंगा तो दिक्कत. दूसरा, जो मैंने डिलीवरी देने के लिए बोला है, जिस तरह का मैंने प्रोडक्ट देने के लिए बोला है, मैं वही तरह की क्वालिटी का प्रोडक्ट दूं और उसी को ही मैं किसी भी एडवर्टाइजमेंट में या किसी भी अग्रीमेंट के अंदर अपना प्लेस करूं. क्योंकि अगेन मैं एक अपने मन में ख्वाब बना लेता हूँ एज एन अलॉटी कि मेरे को तो मेरे आशियाने में ये चीज़ें ऐसी ऐसी रहेंगी। और जब वो मेरा आशियाना मेरे को उस तरह से नहीं मिलता, मेरे ख्वाब टूटते हैं, तो मेरे जो ग्रजेस हैं वो ग्रजेस डेवलपर की तरफ निकलते हैं। अगर मैं ये दो चीज़ें अच्छे से मैनेज करके मेरी टीम इस बारे में कोई गलती नहीं करे, मैं आपको वायदा कर सकता हूं कोई भी अलॉटी आपसे डिससेटिस्फाई नहीं होगा। आप उसको 100 रुपए के अंदर कोई चीज बेचेंगे, 50 रुपए का वो आपके लिए एडवर्टिजमेंट करेगा कि ये डेवलपर देखो कितना बढ़िया है। मेरे की जो उसकी एडवर्टिजमेंट की वैल्यू होगी वो इतना ज़्यादा होगी कि आने वाले समय में जो आपके नए प्रोजेक्ट्स आएंगे उसके लिए आपको 1x उसका फायदा उस पुराने वाले अलॉटी को टाइम से दिए देने का। और जो वायदा बोला है, अब जो वायदा देने का बोला है मैंने, जो चीज़ देने की बोली है उसके अंदर अप्रूव्ड मैप्स भी काउंट होते हैं। मैंने अगर ये बोला है कि मैं 10 बाय 10 का आपको फ्लैट दूंगा, या 10 बाय 10 का ये कमरा दूंगा, या ये कॉमन एरिया मैं आपको दूंगा, इस कॉमन एरिया में ये सुविधाएं मैं आपको दूंगा, तो जैसा मैंने बोला है वैसा मैं उसको डिलीवर करूं। जो वादा किया है वो निभाना पड़ेगा। और अगर वो वादा मैंने निभाया है तो दोनों खुश रहेंगे, ये मैं आपको बता सकता हूं।
So, Amit, when I talk about the end customer, definitely post RERA, how has the overall customer happiness index improved?
सो द इम्प्रूवमेंट इज मल्टीपल फोल्ड्स। मैं ये बोलूँगा कि वो जो मल्टी फोल्ड इम्प्रूवमेंट है वो ना सिर्फ डिलीवरेबल से आया है कि एज अ डेवलपर अच्छी डिलीवरी हुई है, वो कहीं ना कहीं रेगुलेशन से भी आया है। क्योंकि अब ये चीज़ का आभास हो गया है कि अगर मैंने प्रॉपर जो वायदा किया था, जो मैंने अग्रीमेंट में लिखा, वो मैंने उस प्रॉपर तरीके से डिलीवर नहीं किया, तो वो मेरे लिए बाद में एक परेशानी का विषय बन सकता है। तो कुछ मेरी इच्छा से कि मेरे को अब ऐसा कुछ नहीं करना, कुछ रेरा का मैं बोल सकता हूँ डंडे से, दोनों को मिला के अब जो सेटिस्फैक्शन है, अब जो फेथ है रियल एस्टेट डेवलपमेंट के अंदर, किसी प्रोजेक्ट के अंदर जाके बुकिंग करवाने में, उस प्रोजेक्ट की डिलीवरी होने के अंदर, वो मल्टीपल फोल्ड्स बढ़ा है और ये बढ़ता रहेगा आने वाले समय।
Awesome. So, Amit, that means जो construction की overall quality है post RERA उसमें भी there would have been a significant.
सो अगेन कंस्ट्रक्शन की क्वालिटी के अंदर रेरा अगेन एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट और रोल मैं बोल सकता हूँ प्ले कर रहा है। वो ऐसे कि अब डिफेक्ट लाइबिलिटी क्लॉज डाल दिया गया है। मैं 5 साल तक के लिए, एक तरह से अगर आसान भाषा में बोलूं, तो मैं जिस तरह से कोई प्रोडक्ट को खरीदता हूं तो और मैं वारंटी लेके चलता हूं, उसी रूप के अंदर मैं अगर कोई रियल एस्टेट खरीद रहा हूं तो एक रूप में 5 साल की वारंटी लेके चल रहा हूं मैं। इंटेंड अथॉरिटी का जब ये एक्ट आया तब यही था कि जो क्वालिटी है वो क्वालिटी मेंटेन्ड हो, जो डिलीवरेबल्स है वो डिलीवरेबल्स ऐसे हों जो कि पुअर क्वालिटी के नहीं हो। अब इसके साथ इफेक्ट ये आया है कि जो मेरे वेंडर्स हैं एज अ डेवलपर, मैं उन वेंडर्स से भी वारंटी ले रहा हूँ। चाहे मैं उसको एक चौखट दूं, चाहे मैं उसको कोई सैनिटरी दूं, चाहे मैं उसको कोई और तरह की इलेक्ट्रॉनिक फिटिंग दूं। मैं आपको एक एग्जाम्पल बता के, आपको एक लाइव एग्जाम्पल है। मेरे एक डेवलपर दोस्त हैं, उन्हीं के साथ उन्हीं के ऑफिस में बैठा था और एक वेंडर आए। वो वेंडर चौखट सप्लाई करते हैं। तो जो डेवलपर हैं उन्होंने उनको ये बोला कि ठीक है आप माल तो दे दिए मेरे को, माल मैं ले भी ले लूँगा आपसे, लेकिन मेरे को ये जो आपकी जो चौखट आप मेरे को दे रहे हैं मेरे को इस चौखट की वारंटी कार्ड्स चाहिएंगे। ये नहीं कि आपने मेरे को 500 पीस दिए हैं तो 500 का आप मेरे को एक ही वारंटी कार्ड दे दो। मेरे को 500 के 500 अलग अलग वारंटी कार्ड देंगे आप। मेरे को आप कैसे, अगर इसके अंदर वारंटी में कोई क्लेम आ जाता है तो किस तरह से कस्टमर क्लेम लेगा वो आप बताएंगे। उसकी क्या एसओपी है वो आप मेरे को बताएंगे। तब उन्होंने ये सारा डिस्कशन, ये करीब 2-2.5 घंटे का डिस्कशन चला उनका, एंड आई वॉज द विटनेस फॉर दैट डिस्कशन।
So the overall
और
viewpoint has
राइट, सो पहले अगर मैं यही 10 साल पहले की बात करूं तो सप्लाई माल, हाँ ठीक है लग जाएगा, लगा देंगे। लेकिन अब इनिशियल स्टेज के ऊपर ही जब मैं अपना वाइंडर फाइनल कर रहा हूं तभी मैं एज अ डेवलपर इतना स्ट्रिंजेंट हो गया। ये सब इफेक्ट रेरा का हुआ है, और इसका जो एंड रिजल्ट है वो ये है कि जो डिलीवरी, जो क्वालिटी ऑफ प्रोडक्ट, द रियल एस्टेट प्रोडक्ट विच इज टू बी डिलीवर्ड टू द अलॉटीज हैव नाउ इम्प्रूव्ड मैनी फोल्ड। और मैं रादर इम्प्रूव्ड का शब्द मैंने गलत इस्तेमाल कर लिया। अब मैं ये बोलूँगा कि गुंजाइश मोटा मोटी ख़त्म हो गई कि कोई भी प्रोडक्ट जो एंड अलॉटी को आ रहा है वो जो क्वालिटी उसको बोली गई है उसी क्वालिटी का आ रहा है। अब गैप ही ख़त्म हो गया, और मैं बोलूँगा कि एरिया ऑफ इम्प्रूवमेंट ही ख़त्म हो गया, क्योंकि वो चीज़ ऑलरेडी इतनी इम्प्रूव्ड और इतनी बेहतरीन डिलीवर हो रही है।
तो मतलब पहले जो है नमक में आटा था, आटे में थोड़ा बहुत नमक है, तो चलो उतना
वो स्वाद के लिए ज़रूरी है, वो स्वाद के लिए ज़रूरी, नहीं तो अच्छा नहीं लगेगा फिर।
So, Amit, let's say when we talk about anything, when we improve the quality, logically it drops our margins. What has been the impact of RERA on the margins of the developer?
देखिए डेफिनेटली मार्जिन्स का जो इफेक्ट है वो दो रूप में हुआ है। देर आर टू वेज वेयर द मार्जिन्स हैव हिट, बट इट हैव हिट ऑन द पॉजिटिव साइड। दैट इज लाइक अ डिस्क्लेमर आई वुड लव टू टेल और लव टू पुट इन प्लेस। पहला, द क्वालिटी ऑफ स्टफ विच आई वॉज डिलीवरिंग, द क्वालिटी ऑफ प्रोडक्ट आई वॉज गिविंग, एज वी हैव डिस्कस्ड, मैं अब वो वारंटीड प्रोडक्ट ले रहा हूँ। तो वो वारंटीड प्रोडक्ट जब भी मैं लेता हूँ तो उसकी क्वालिटी भी अच्छी आती है, और उसकी जो कॉस्ट ऑफ मेंटेनेंस है वो भी उसके अंदर इनकॉर्पोरेट होती है। तो मेरी कॉस्ट ऑफ एक्विजिशन कहीं ना कहीं बढ़ गई है, उसके कारण मेरी जो मार्जिन्स है उसमें मेरे को फ़र्क पड़ा है। दूसरा, जो मैं पहले बोलता था कि मैं डिलीवर करूँगा, उसके साथ साथ उसके अलावा भी जो अप्रूव्ड लेआउट होते थे उसके हिसाब से मैं प्रोडक्ट को, मेरी जो एंड रियल एस्टेट है कहीं ना कहीं उसको मैं डेवलप नहीं कर रहा था। कहीं ना कहीं मैं एक्स्ट्रा मार्जिन्स क्रिएट कर रहा था, जिस तरह से सेलिंग ऑफ कार पार्किंग, सेलिंग ऑफ कॉमन एरिया, ये सब मैं पहले एक प्रैक्टिस अडॉप्ट करता था एज अ डेवलपर। अब ये सब चीज़ें नहीं हो पाएंगी, ना हो रही हैं। इनके कारण जो मार्जिन्स के ऊपर प्रेशर आया है वो डेफिनेट है, लेकिन मैं इसको दूसरे तरीके से बोलता हूँ। एक हमने कहावत सुनी है, तेल तो तिलों से ही निकलेगा। अगर मैं किसी अलॉटी को अच्छी चीज़ दे रहा हूँ, वारंटीड चीज़ दे रहा हूँ, उसको जो सेट अप्रूव्ड मैप्स हैं उसकी तरह बना के दे रहा हूँ, तो मेरी जो भी कॉस्ट आ रही है वो कॉस्ट प्लस जो भी मेरे को मार्जिन्स मेरे को मेंटेन रखने हैं वो बना के मैं बाजार के अंदर बेचूंगा चीज़ को। सबसे अच्छी बात ये हो गई है, वो मैं जो भी अक्रॉस द कंट्री मैं सेल करूंगा वो मैं कारपेट एरिया पे सेल करूंगा। कारपेट एरिया पे सेल करने से नाउ एप्पल्स टू एप्पल्स एंड ऑरेंजेस टू ऑरेंजेस वुड बी कंपेयर्ड। और ये एप्पल्स टू एप्पल्स और ऑरेंजेस टू ऑरेंजेस का जो कंपैरिजन है मेरे को 2 साल बाद में और पता चलेगा, जब एक डेवलपर ने तो मेरे को चीज़ दी और उसकी क्वालिटी इतनी अच्छी है, प्राइस हो सकता है उसकी थोड़ी बेसी थी, लेकिन उस बेसी प्राइस में, उस ज़्यादा प्राइस के अंदर मेरे को रिजल्ट मिले हैं, जो डिलीवरेबल्स है वो फार मोर बेटर हैं एज कंपेयर टू अदर पेयर्स ऑफ दैट. So, as told previously also, the word of mouth which would be flowing with this all would be far more profitable than what profits we can see in our books.
So accumulated profits definitely would have increased.
Definitely.
And Amit, what's the impact on cash flow? Because since profit and cash flow they go hand in hand, they are two very important pivots of a business. So post RERA, what has been the impact on cash flow for a developer?
So if I tell you in a real terms, तो मेरे कैश फ्लो पे प्रेशर आया है. मैं पहले कहीं ना कहीं जो अलॉटीज के पैसे हैं उसी के ऊपर ही डेवलपमेंट कर देता था. बट नाउ बिकॉज ऑफ द सेपरेट अकाउंट टू बी मेंटेन, वेयर आई नीड टू take out the money of the allottees to the extent I have utilized that money into my project. Because of this, now I, as a developer, need to put my own or bring my own money to the project. बिकॉज मैं पहले प्रोजेक्ट के अंदर पैसा लेके आऊँगा, प्रोजेक्ट को मैं डेवलप करूँगा, डेवलप किए हुए प्रोजेक्ट को जब मैं अलॉटी को दिखाऊंगा तब अलॉटी पैसा देगा और तब मैं उस पैसे को निकाल पाऊंगा. बट माइंड इट, दिस इज जस्ट अ वन टाइम अफेयर. शुरू के अंदर, स्टार्टिंग के अंदर हो सकता है मैं थोड़ा सा प्रेशर फील करूं कैश फ्लो का, बट द वे द प्रोजेक्ट वुड बी प्रोग्रेसिंग, अलॉटी चल के आगे से और पैसा देगा और वो जो कैश फ्लो का प्रेशर है वो खत्म हो जाएगा. अगर मैं इसको दूसरे रूप में बोलूँ तो इट इज़ जस्ट अ माइंड थॉट कि मेरे को अपने कैश फ्लो में प्रेशर आ रहा है, लेकिन इफेक्टिवली कोई प्रेशर नहीं है रेरा के आने पे. इसके अलावा एक बहुत ही अच्छी चीज़ अभी बहुत रेरा अथॉरिटीज़ ने चालू कर दी कि जो बैंक अकाउंट है, सेपरेट बैंक अकाउंट है, उनके रूल्स निकालना उन्होंने चालू कर दिया. हाउ दी सेपरेट बैंक अकाउंट्स नीड्स टू बी मेंटेन. और पहले रेरा के एक्ट के अंदर ही लिखा था कि जो मेरा स्पेयर पैसा रखा हुआ है उसको मैं अलग नहीं कर सकता, उसको मैं बैंक अकाउंट से नहीं निकाल सकता. लेकिन अब उन्होंने जो फिक्स्ड इनकम प्रोडक्ट्स हैं वहाँ पे ये डिपॉजिट करने के लिए भी कई रेरा अथॉरिटीज अलाउ करना चालू कर दिया है. तो इफेक्टिवली नेट नेट कोई प्रेशर नहीं है और कैश फ्लो स्मूथ है. इट्स जस्ट एक बार माइंड सोचने का है कि मेरे को प्रेशर आ रहा है, इफेक्टिवली नहीं है.
Definitely, forecasting of cash flow is always very important element of planning for any real estate developer. How do you take this as an important pivot and how you help them?
So again, like in helping up for the cash flow, there are many source of funding. Maybe uh, the bank funding, maybe the institution funding, and now there would be a very big game changer which would be coming in time to come, would be external commercial borrowings. Now, to purchase the land even after 30 years, government, the RBI have came up with their consultation paper, and maybe in another 30 to 40 days that would be there in place, where the developers would be allowed to raise external commercial borrowings for giving their money for the purchase of land. Apart from that, there are many other financial products like the alternative investment funds, REITs, which are available for raising capital for the developer.
Amit, so from the perspective of developer, how does he sees RERA and what changes does he thinks should be brought in RERA?
So, with the prospectus of developer, uh, the fraternity is taking it very positively. The changes which I assume they are expecting is that as the RERA Act is a central, the rules should be also uh, unified, you can say, or could be centralized to an extent. Whatever is like there are limitation towards the land laws, those could be the areas, or those could be the uh, rules which could be made by this respective RERA authority. Rest, more or less, all rules like the rules for agreement to sell, uh, the bank account, the way the quarterly progress reports are to be filed, the penalties if they're on non filing, or the way the extension of the projects are to be taken, or if there is a change in developer, how it needs to be placed, the documentation of all these. I think now it's in high time, after almost a decade of implementation. Now the authorities have also understood, the Ministry of Housing have also understood, and it's a high time that there should be rules which are there, the common rules which are not directly related to land laws should be taken care at the central level, so that when we are talking about comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges, this would going to play a very important role in that, because whatever rule is applicable to you for making the agreement, that same applies to me. However, the whichever manner the bank account, maybe you sitting in Chennai and I sitting at Lucknow, are implementing, the cash flows which are being implemented at both the levels are similar. The way the compliances are to be made by you at any part of the country and me at any part of the country are similar, will actually create a benchmark, and then we would going to say like, yes, there are actual apple to apple and oranges to oranges comparison.
Awesome. So, Amit, execution or regulation? What causes more delay as per your experience?
Regulations.
Scale or intent? What's more important for a developer?
Intent.
Why?
If the intent is there, scale would going to come behind.
And what is that one non negotiable rule every new developer at least must follow post RERA?
Proper implementation and abide themselves by the rules which are there. He should be between those lines which are there in the act.
And one advice, Amit, for the developers who are like settled already there in the business for like 10, 15, 20 years. So
So
I
I
have
have
heard
heard
from
from
my
my
childhood.
childhood that sky is the limit, and the same goes to them. Now the big time players, tier 1, are now entering tier 2, tier 3 cities, and similarly the inbound and outbound from tier 3 to bigger, or from tier 1 to other cities can happen. So what we need to just take care is, again, uh, same quote which I have done previously in understanding, in telling about the RERA Act, that is, जो वादा किया है वो निभाना पड़ेगा. That would going to remain same to any part of the world, to any part of the country, to any part of the city. If I am delivering, I have created my name, fame from in this last 15 years by doing the same. And if I carry on the same by delivering whatever have been told at the initial stage, definitely I would be growing multifolds in time to come. जहाँ मैं अभी हूँ उससे भी और ऊपर मैं चले जाऊँगा, बिकॉज एक यूएस की कंपनी मेरे हिंदुस्तान के पूरे कैपिटल मार्केट के बराबर है। तो हिंदुस्तान में तो ऐसी बहुत कंपनियां बनेंगी। अभी तो कुछ 100 कंपनियां रियल एस्टेट में हैं जो लिस्टेड हैं। अभी तो हजारों कंपनियां ऐसी आएंगी जो रियल एस्टेट में लिस्टेड होंगी। इसीलिए ही मैंने बोला स्काई इज द लिमिट। तो जितना बड़ा मैं अभी हूं, मैं उससे 10 टाइम्स 20 टाइम्स बिल्कुल बन सकता हूं अनदर 10 सालों में ही। 2047 की बात नहीं कर रहा, मैं सिर्फ 2037 की बात कर रहा हूं।
Thank you, Amit, for putting it so much. I was thinking RERA is a very difficult, it's going to be a little complex conversation, but I think the way you have explained it, it was so simple for me as a layman to understand. And I'm sure that you would be bringing uh, so much simplicity in every work you would be delivering with every developer. And hats off to you for taking it as such a strong mission, which is larger than your life. I feel, because I've been seeing you conversating with you for so many years now. So I'm so touched, moved, and inspired by the mission which you have taken it to educate and empower the developer. That's so inspiring. Thank you once again for coming up on our Build Legacy show. I truly appreciate your time, your effort, and your attention. And once again, big thank you to you for watching this episode till the end, because without you, this would have never been possible. So thank you so much for giving in your love. If you've not subscribed to the channel, do subscribe, do hit, and do put your comments. What more podcast you want us to bring on this show? We would be more than excited and happy to share it further with you and for you. Thank
Thank
you
you
very
very
much
much
for
for
calling
calling
me.
me
Thank you.
and sharing
This
this
for
for
public
public
advantage.
advantage.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.